All right. How's it going, James?
Going great. How are you?
Doing awesome. So thanks
Good.
for joining me today.
You bet.
Yeah, so James Steffy here, and he's been flipping for about 4 years now.
Yeah.
And James sent me an email the other day, and I really appreciated it. And the subject of it was "Thank you, a success story," success story. And you said it was okay for me to read this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. All right. So I'm just going to make this quick. He said, "Hey, Danny, a little over 4 years ago, I signed up for your Freedom by Flipping course, brand new to real estate investing at the time. And I've been reading a lot about the business and knew it was what I wanted to do, but was feeling overwhelmed and actually taking the first steps to get started. I had followed your blog for a while and really like your writing. So I decided to purchase your Freedom by Flipping course. Your course is what got me to take action, which is what it's all about, right? I've been working hard in real estate and loving it for the past 4 years now. And we now have rental properties, do wholesale deals, and full rehabs. At the end of August, I got my biggest check yet for $131,479.17. I love how you put the cents on there, the 17. It's got to be exact, right?
It's gotta be.
It was the profit from a seller finance deal that my wife and I rehabbed, moved into a couple years ago, and moved into for a couple years and then sold. I'm happier than I've ever been, and I couldn't imagine doing anything but real estate. I've been helped tremendously along the way by all the blogs and books that I've read, the classes I've taken, investors I've met. But it was all set into motion as a direct result of the action I took from your course. I followed every part of it to the letter, and my first deal came from those first letters that I sent out. So I want to genuinely express my gratitude for taking the time to put out the content and help people get started in business. Your course was a game changer for me in my life, so thank you. All the best to your family, you, and your business. So that's from James Steffy, and I quickly, because I mean, if when you get an email like that, you got to invite the guy onto the and so I
I
immediately
appreciate it.
replied.
Yeah. I appreciate it. I
Yeah,
meant
that's
it
right.
though, it was if it hadn't been for the course, there's a lot of things that I've done since the course, it wasn't just that, but if
Right.
it hadn't been for that, I wouldn't be where I am now. So
You're not supposed to say that.
yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm not even marketing the course anymore because I didn't update it for a while, and
Yeah.
I want to make sure that most current information is out there. But no, I think hearing this success, and you said working hard over the last 4 years,
Yeah.
and I want to talk about that because I think a lot of that is left out from people's stories a lot of times. Other
Sure.
people listen to other people on the podcast and hearing their success, and we just talked about it before this episode,
Yeah.
before we started recording.
Yeah. It definitely took a while to get some traction. It was I started off doing the letters, putting out the bandit signs like it said in the course, and my wife and I would print out all the letters at home, and I'd sign them individually, and we'd fold them all and stuff the envelopes, and I'd drive for dollars, and I compiled huge lists, and it was just a lot of that groundwork initially over and over and over. But for the first 2 years, I'd say it was, there'd be deals that would come, but it wasn't like, I wouldn't call it an overnight success. It was a lot of just consistently doing the work.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound super, exciting, but that's really what it is, right? I think for most real estate investors that have made it,
Yeah.
that's what really got them to where they could, find the success in it. Can we go back and just fill in, how you got interested in real estate? What brought you to real estate? And
Sure. Yeah. I had done, throughout college, I did construction, all that kind of stuff. So I was fairly familiar with the kind of work that went into rehabbing houses. But I'd gotten away from it for a while. I'd owned a personal training business for a while, and I got burnt out on that. My wife and I moved to South Korea, actually,
oh
to
wow,
teach English. It's something we had done before. It's a great way to save money. So we did it with the intention of stocking away a good amount of money to be able to come home and start up another business. So the whole time I was there, I was researching what I wanted to do, and I decided real estate was it. It seemed like a good fit for my my skill set and what I like to do. So I started on Bigger Pockets, I think, reading all the blogs and came across your information. And every day on the bus when I was going to work, I just listened to podcasts and started to think about what I was going to do. We came home from Korea. I picked a few different markets that I thought would work for us. And we spent some time actually driving around the country, visiting different cities
Oh, wow.
where I thought that it would work. And
Which markets were those that you guys checked into?
we were looking at Atlanta. We looked at Houston. We looked at Tampa. We looked at Sacramento, I think at the time. Charleston, South Carolina. Those are the major ones. We ended up moving to the Tampa Bay area. Yeah, so that's what kind of led me to it, and then it was all in. I didn't know I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I'd been, analysis paralysis. I'd been reading all these things, and I didn't know exactly how to actually take the first step to get started. I got your course, and I followed it, and then everything just started working. So.
All right, so that's a done deal. Then success, boom. Now he's rich.
No,
famous.
it was my first deal was a really not a great house and not a great neighborhood.
How did you get that first one?
That was through letters it was through direct mail. I think it was just an absentee owner list. And yeah, it was a kind of a bad part of town. I was kind of new to the area, so I didn't know how bad the part of town was. And it ended up being it was, it wasn't good. It was a bad house in a bad part of town that after I purchased it, I found out had like a really bad history too, of all kinds of horrible things happening there in the past. So.
Yeah, that sounds like a neighborhood that we call Gunrise over here. The actual name of the neighborhood's Sunrise, but we call it Gunrise. But.
Exactly. But it ended up working out okay, So what happened there is I rehabbed that house, put almost all my money into it, and realized that I couldn't sell it. If I sold it, I'd barely get my money back. So I was in a position where I didn't really know what to do with it, and I'd started going to a local investors meeting at the time, which has turned out to be a really great thing for me. A lot of my businesses come from that. Good group of people, but one of them there expressed an interest, and what we actually ended up doing was he gave me some money for half of my equity in the house, and we became 50-50 owners essentially. So we kept it as a rental. It was my responsibility to manage the rental. I got to pull almost all my money that I put into it back out, and then we kept it, and that was my first rental. So I got an education on property management and not part of town. And
well, why didn't you wholesale, man? That was the course was about wholesaling, and then you're telling me.
I was just so excited to come across it. I made them, and I found that I actually had a lot of success with making seller finance offers. Some of the initially anyway, a lot of people weren't taking my cash offers, and I was willing to give them because I stuck to my numbers, and I was willing to give them a higher price though, if people were willing to take terms, and as long as a tenant could afford the mortgage. If a tenant could afford the mortgage, I'd give someone their price if I could make it work as a rental. And then I started finding ways, like partnering with people to be able, as long as I could pull my money back out of it and go do it again, keep it as a rental. So initially it started as this way to try and make a little bit of money, but it turned into getting a few more rentals from that strategy. And then along the way, I started wholesaling houses, and then we started doing full rehabs.
Right. So what kind of differences were you, I know it depends on the house and the price range and what the rents would be and all that kind of stuff, but what are some typical differences in your cash offer to your owner financed offer?
Cash offers are based basically on if I'm going to sell the house. So I'll just do my, whatever the ARV is, factor in my profit, subtract out the repairs, and that's what I can pay. If I'm going to offer terms, it's going to be a house that I can hold as a rental. So that the number that I'll be able to pay them is based on, can I make the payment work? Because I don't mind the goal there is a long-term thing, right? So I don't mind if the market dips and the value of the house, drops way down. As long as a tenant can afford the mortgage and it'll cash flow and put some money in my pocket every month, that's what those numbers are based on. So in that scenario, a lot of times the dollar amount that I can pay for the house would be a lot higher. I could give someone $100,000 for a house, if they'll hold a note, as opposed to maybe only 70,000 cash.
Okay, so it's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, a lot of times there is.
Do you make the cash offer first and wait till they either turn it down or?
I actually started making them simultaneously. So I made up a little pamphlet, and what I do at the end of appointments is write down both offers. I discuss with people a little bit ahead of time if it's something they're interested in. Some people are just flat out don't want anything to do with it. A lot of people, though, are kind of receptive to it. You explain the benefits to them. It depends on their situation, too,
Right.
But I'd make both offers simultaneously. And I started having a good amount of luck with the seller finance offers.
Okay, what if they still owed something on the property? Were you still making that offer?
If there was enough room for me to be able to make it work from a cash-on-cash return point, if I had to give them, if there was too much money to pay off their mortgage, then it's not going to work. But sometimes it's only, 20 or 30 grand, and you can make that work. Maybe they'll walk away with a little less, but it all depends on the numbers, I guess. So
Nice. Yeah, I like having the option. And I asked the dollar amount difference because I was curious about whether, and I've done that before, and it's really cool to see people not thinking yes or no then at some point. They're then thinking like, well, which offer do I take, right? Which is a cool scenario. They're not thinking none of these. They're thinking which one of these.
Exactly.
And it's kind of cool to see that play out.
And it's different, because you never know what somebody's after. Sometimes I think they just like you as a person. Sometimes there's a dollar amount in their head. And I found it just helps you can get closer to their number a lot of times as far as what they're asking. I've found, not all the time, but I can definitely give them more money.
Yeah. Yeah, more money is nice. And do you think that, some people kind of prefer to have that monthly payment coming in?
Absolutely.
Getting everything as a lump sum.
There's a tax benefit to them. There are a lot of benefits. Over time, they're going to get more money, as if they just took a cash payment now. It just depends on their situation, yeah. But I found a lot of people do. You can explain the benefits of monthly income. It's appealing to a lot of people. So.
And you said you have a pad of paper or something. You explain the different offers.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'll write them both out and then write them down. So yeah, I'd leave everybody with a pamphlet that kind of says like about our business and what we do, and on the back page of it, there's a space for like our offer, and I'll write down the two different offers.
Nice.
Explain why, I explain, cash, I can't give you as much.
So what is your approach are you still doing acquisitions? Do you still go to the houses to make offers?
I do. Yep.
What is your approach to prepare for that meeting? And I've recently had somebody email me about this, so I want to get your input on what you're, preparing for that meeting, going to the meeting, how it goes. Do you sit down with them on the couch and talk? Explain in detail.
I try to. And honestly, I'll get all the information I need about the house before I go, right? As far as how much the house is worth in the neighborhood and what they're selling for. I'll drive by it first, usually, and put eyes on it before we go meet with them. I prefer to go meet with sellers alone. I have two other partners that I work with now. I found it's a lot easier to build rapport by myself. And honestly, I just listen as much as I can. There's always a reason why someone's selling a house, I think. And they're not going to come out and tell you what that is right off the bat. I think it's important to ask a lot of questions, ask the right questions. Why are you selling a house like this? you really got to find out what the reason is. It's motivating to sell. It's an uncomfortable situation. It's the only way someone would sell a house at a discount. Um, if you can get to what that is, I think, and then show them that you can provide the solution to that problem, it's, uh, it's the way to do it. So
How long do your appointments typically take?
I'd say anywhere between usually when I end up getting the deal, it's probably close to an hour. I'd say total that I end up spending with the person. Um, the shorter the amount of time, now usually, it varies, but the shorter the amount of time, usually I don't end up with the deal. The more time I spend with the person, the better off I am. You don't want to waste time if there's nothing there, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I think it's important to develop the rapport and get the person to feel comfortable with you before you start throwing numbers at them and.
So would you say if they're opening up, you would start spending more time, but if they're stonewalling you, they're just not giving you anything.
Exactly. And I'll try and honestly weed those people out before you even go on an appointment.
How do you do that?
If someone, I think it's important to know where someone's coming from as far as how much they'll take for a house. I just need a ballpark. I'm not trying to come to an exact number over the phone, but I found that people just totally aren't willing to discuss price. 90% of the time it's because their price is unrealistic or we're not going to be able to come to an agreement. And I don't mind. A lot of people, they won't give you a number, and so I'll throw one out on the phone if that's what they want to do. It's going to be low just to see where they come back at. But I think it's important to uncover motivation before you go on the appointment so you don't waste time. If we're too far off on our numbers, there's nothing I'm going to be able to do, and it is a waste of time. It's always good to meet with sellers, I think, but you can make your time a lot more productive by making sure that the sellers you actually go on appointments with are ones who are motivated to sell. There's actually a deal there.
Right. So would you say in the beginning, probably go on all of them because you don't really have a good idea one way or the other, but then work to that so that you have more time to spend on the ones that you do go on?
Absolutely. I do. I think it's, over the more appointments you go on, I think the easier it gets to tell when someone's serious and when someone's motivated.
I thought you were going to say it gets easier to just go in, make an offer, and leave.
That too, I guess. You don't feel as bad about hurting someone's feelings maybe by giving them an offer that they may not like.
I just remembered I had taken. We were training somebody. It may have been my brother-in-law, and we went to an appointment. And I was trying to show him like how to go on appointments and make offers so he could do it for us. And it was so ridiculous. Like the guy didn't say much at all, like the seller. And so it was kind of stonewalling. And I just looked at the house, made the offer, and he said, no way. And I said, okay. And then turned around and left. And he's like, is that it? And like, there's no, like, you're not going to try it. And I was like, well, no. I mean, the guy is completely, but I didn't think, it's like, it was weird having to explain why I was doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
But it made me question too. It's like, maybe I didn't handle that the best. I was too quick to get out of there instead.
Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, I think you get a feel for it though, right? I think the more you do it, and I think it is important initially to go meet with everybody. And I would do that. Those first calls I got, I was super nervous about them, and but I would just go, right? Just go and make an offer.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing. But.
Yeah, you didn't even know really what to ask them, right? When you got there, or what to talk about, right? You just went and found out.
Yeah, it just
is weird.
Stumble through it, right? Like ask weird questions. I didn't know what I was looking for, what I was doing. But it's like anything else, and that initially, that was super intimidating to me, to go do that. But again, it's like anything else. The more you do it, and I think it's good for you to do things like that out of your comfort zone. So.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, and you had made a comment about liking to go by yourself, right? And you feel like you can build rapport a little bit better that way. And I think it does matter who you're with. If it's a husband and wife, that might be a little bit better. But if you're with, if it's three guys going over and an old lady selling her house, it's kind of intimidating.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, it's situational, but I do prefer it honestly. And I do go with my partners a lot to to go meet with sellers. But I feel like I'm more effective by myself. It's just a preference thing.
It can be a little bit more personable, or
Yeah, I think it's easier for the person to feel comfortable too. It's just one-on-one.
yeah.
So, yeah.
So do you find things around the house or things in their discussion with you that you kind of latch onto and start asking more questions about, because it seems to be the thing that, is what's on their mind?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think that comes back to just really listening, as opposed to going in there and telling them what you can do and how you can help them. I think it's important to listen to what their problem is.
No, I like that. And there's so much truth in that. You've said listening like 10 times. And I know it's the absolute right thing to do, because if you go in and just like, even if you're just asking a bunch of open-ended questions, but just like letting them talk and and that was like one of the first things that we learned when we were getting started in this. Was I had read a book called Power Negotiating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one of the best things in that book that I liked the most was just shut up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, stop talking. Like, everybody wants to fill in the uncomfortable silence. And that's when we get into trouble, or that's when we just like, aren't being very effective. And so just being quiet and shutting up and letting the other person talk, which I have a problem with, but no.
Do you really?
No, we all do. But.
Oh man. Yeah, it's kind of, I'm not a very talkative person anyway, not too extroverted. So it comes naturally, I guess, just kind of be quiet and listen to what they have to say. It's difficult, because not like I said, I do think it's important though to get to, some people it's really obvious, right? They just have a house, it's a pain in the butt, it's a landlord. They're like, I don't want to deal with it anymore. But for a lot of people, there's personal reasons, all tied up with emotional issues, if it's a probate thing, or if it's, who knows, if they grew up there, or you never know. But finding out the real reason, there's pain for, maybe it's they can't afford it anymore, or they feel embarrassed, they can't take care of it, and it's in this really bad shape, or whatever it is, you find it out and you let them know it's not a big deal. We can solve that problem. We can help you take care of it. So,
do you ever have people ask you if you have signage on your car because they don't want their neighbors to know?
No.
No?
No. Signage on my car?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in fact, we've had that asked us before, do you have a sign? Because they didn't want their neighbors to know that they were thinking.
No one's ever asked me that. No.
So people listening, you might want to consider, if you have a big wrapped car, that might not be. Because like you said, it can be, it's like a thing that some people just don't like sharing, that
for whatever
they're needing to sell, they don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do when that big moving truck comes, but
yeah. That said though, even one of the most important things I think you can do too is just to make the offer. Even those people, like I said, who I can't get something out of them on the phone, I'll just make an offer. Just throw something at them, see what they say. It never hurts to make. You're definitely not going to get the deal if you don't make an offer. You got to make. A lot of people are going to tell you no, but I think it's important to just, any seller who contacts you, just throw them an offer. Maybe it doesn't work for them now, that's fine, but I think it's important to make the offer.
Oh, that's big. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you pretty much everybody you talk to is like 100% you're making an offer no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of people, they'll call me, and even if it's like a retail deal, they'll say, I want X amount of money and I can only give them 50,000 less than that. I'll tell them, I'll say, the best I could do on that is going to be somewhere around 50,000 less than you're asking. But if your listing expires, or if whatever's happened falls through, and we're getting better about putting all those kinds of things that aren't deals immediately into a follow-up system. Instead of writing them off completely, putting them into our system and following up on that. So giving them a call in a few weeks and just say, hey, we talked a couple weeks ago. I know the situation wasn't right for you then, but just let you know we're still interested if things have changed for you, kind of thing.
That's super important. I was just talking about 3 episodes ago, I think, on the
Mhm.
podcast, maybe 4 with Don Costa. And he said 40% of his deals right now are coming from follow-up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
We read the
big.
numbers. It's easy to let stuff fall through the cracks. You get involved in the day to day, and I think there's definitely a lot of missed potential for
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah. I mean, just imagine, how many of your competitors don't pick up the phone,
Mhm.
and then how many of them don't do follow-up.
Mhm.
And so just by picking up the phone every time somebody calls you and then doing follow-up, like, I mean, setting you apart, right? I mean, top 5% of investors in the
Yeah.
area, probably.
Exactly. A slight edge, right? It's
Right.
uh, it's important stuff.
Have you ever had a property where you didn't want to make an offer just because it was weird, it was
Oh,
gross? I mean, has there been any cases like that?
all the time, yeah. Just a couple of days ago, it
Did
happens.
you still make an offer? What was the situation?
We had to. We didn't have to in this situation. So this was a property that came from a wholesaler that we do a lot of business with, and a little outside of our normal market in a pretty rural area. Um, and he had a verbal contract basically. I guess the seller said that they would take X amount of money for the house, but he was having trouble getting in touch with him. So he said, "You guys just go out there and knock on the door and get the contract, and we'll be good to go." Um, so we went out there and we were like, "All right." So we went out there to take a look, and it it was just it just wasn't good. It was supposed to be like two houses on a big lot, and then maybe like a mobile home in between them or something. But the mobile home had been destroyed, and it was all just like kind of scary, like overgrown, blacked out windows, dogs running around the yard, broken down cars everywhere. You know, it would have been a deal if it was what we thought it was going to be, but
Yeah.
it wasn't. And the seller ended up actually, they made an appointment with us, but they backed out of it. They didn't
Oh,
show up. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise thing. We're definitely going to have to renegotiate that contract.
oh, I see.
But yeah,
But it never worked out. So you didn't really have to make an offer on it then.
no,
Yeah.
I guess there isn't anything that I guess at the right price, you know.
Right.
The-
That's the thing right there. It's the right
yeah,
price.
yeah,
I struggle with that on some of the deals in my past where, I would call my dad and say, "Dad, this is like I've never experienced, this thing is jacked. Like, this is weird."
not good.
And he says, "Well, what's the number?" And it's like, "Well, I don't even want to make an offer." And he's like, "Well, there's got to be a number that you will make an offer at that would
That's
make
the
sense."
thing, right? Yeah,
And that could be $1,000 or even $50,
exactly. Yeah,
right? Depending
there's
on,
there's yeah, I think that's an important point. Um, there is, and it's amazing, but there's buyers for just about everything.
that's,
So
yeah,
you can so just because something doesn't, and that's an important point too, I think, just because it doesn't work for your model or the specific type of property that you normally flip, or that the majority, even the buyers that you work with in your market are interested in, it doesn't mean that it's something you should pass on if you can get it at the right price. um, and that's the key, because you don't want to get stuck with one of those crazy things.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
man.
I think I told the story before, but I'm going to paraphrase it real quick if
Yeah.
that's the right word for it. But, so this guy was going to jail the next day, completely tatted up,
Yeah.
and it was just dangerous looking, right? And, and I had to make this offer to him that was like $2,500 or something, or $1,500 was what I ended up coming in at.
Oh, man.
And he agrees to it, or after like negotiating like $1,000 or something. So I think it was 2,500, 3,500 we bought it for, but he agreed to it. And I was like, "Well, great, let's sign this up." And he goes, "Well, that's the problem. It's still my dad's name. He gave it to me, but never deeded it to me. So it's in his name. So you need to go to his house and get him to sign." And I'm like, "Oh, crap." Like, I gotta go to your dad's house and tell him that I'm buying that house from you for like 2,500, 3,500 bucks. So I went there nervous, it's like,
Uh-huh.
what is this guy going to do? He's going to want to kill me, maybe, I
Uh-huh.
don't know. And, he doesn't say a word. He just like invites me in the house and signs, and then I leave, and
Really?
never said a word though. I mean, he couldn't have been happy. I mean, he gave his son the house, and his son's going to jail. And so he's probably selling it so that he can have one last hurrah before he goes to jail. Who knows? But
oh man. And what'd you end up doing with the house? You get rid of it?
I wholesaled it. Yeah. It's like you said, there's always somebody, and there was a landlord that wanted it. I mean, this thing used to be like an old like general store in a neighborhood or something.
Yeah.
And the slab was cracked massively.
Yeah.
Like a 4-inch gap in the center of it.
Man.
But I mean, for that cheap, I mean, heck, I mean, if you rent it out, like you patch that up with some concrete and rent it out. I mean,
that's the thing. Yeah. There's, so it's, I guess it just takes a lot of practice, I guess. It's important to make offers, and yeah, just because you don't want it doesn't mean somebody else doesn't.
right.
So, but there's definitely times, yeah, where I haven't wanted to make an offer. And when that happens, yeah, I just make it so low, even at that low offer, I'm hoping that they say no, but if they do, if there's something that maybe I can do with it.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? That's like you're making a super low offer, but if you're worried they're going to take it, maybe it needs to be lower, right? Because you should not be worried if they say yes, but I know what you're talking about.
But we try, we try to not put anything under contract that we wouldn't close on, if it came down to it. We don't want to, and fortunately we haven't had to yet back out of any contract.
That's awesome.
If the goal is to wholesale it, we try to stick to our numbers so that we can get rid of it. But if we can't, we have every intention of following through. So that's where I think it's really important to make sure that you do feel good about your offer.
Yeah. No, that's big. And that's what I liked about this episode so far is you're bringing up all of these things that are core principles of a good real estate investor. And I think, it's something, people want the fanciest way to get leads or something, or get these deals. But really what it boils down to is these principles that make a good real estate investor. It's listening to the seller, having empathy, listening, finding out what the real situation is, spending the time with them, and always making an offer, always answering the phone when people call you, and then doing the follow-up. How are you handling calls? Are you picking them up yourself? Do you have somebody, or are you guys using an answering service? What are you doing for that?
We split them. We have depending on the letters or the piece that goes out, there's different call rail numbers, and they come to 3 or 4 of us, so the calls get split up. But we still all take them individually. So yeah,
nice.
And I like that, and that's huge. I think it's a lot of times people don't answer the phone, and it blows my mind. I drove just a couple days ago. It happened to me. I drove by a bandit sign, and it said, "Have a house, must sell, no wholesalers." I didn't know if they were looking for, if they really had something. I assume they didn't. I thought maybe they were just looking for buyers. Either way, I wanted to see what it was about. So I called. They didn't answer the phone, and there was no voicemail even set up.
Oh, wow.
And then I got a text back, like an automated text saying, "Oh, I'm on another call," asking me a question. And then I responded to it saying, I was just wondering if you had an actual property, if you're just looking for buyers. And they said, "Great, should I call you or text you?" They said, "How's 6:50 p.m.?" So that's what they asked me in the text message. The reason I bring that up is because at this point it was like 7:15 p.m. So the time that they asked me if they could talk had already come past. So they didn't have.
That's automation gone bad.
Yeah, so I think it's it brought up because we're working on implementing some automated response systems in our business, and I said it's really. And all it takes is one bad impression like that, I think. You can miss a huge deal. You got to be on top of that kind of stuff. You got to answer the phone. Answering the phone is huge. Obviously, right? Someone calls because they're motivated in that instant. They could hang up the phone and never call you again.
Right.
And then no one even called me back. Nobody, nothing.
Yeah. So, they've already left a bad taste too. I mean, if they did, you'd be like, yeah, I don't want to waste my time.
No.
Like you do.
Not serious. So
yeah, I can imagine what, it makes you wonder how they're selling the properties too. They're just like send out stuff, but people call to find out about it. They won't pick up the call. Just not able to move property. This is relationship. It's all about, relationships with people.
Absolutely. And so I think it's important to be consistent with these simple things day in and day out, because a lot of people aren't, and that's your competition out there, people who don't answer the phone, and it's, answer the phone, be
Do you know
professional.
your cost per lead, your typical cost per lead that you get?
Do not.
What would you imagine it is? What do you figure it is roughly?
I guess on our direct mail, and I have to say it's been tougher and tougher with our direct mail. Response rates go down, and the actual deals that we're getting from them shrinking.
Yeah.
It's not as profitable as it used to be.
Well, I do a webinar about that, right?
I do, yeah. I've listened to, we've listened to it all.
We did the seller lead hacks one, sellerleadhacks.com. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Listen to all of it, yeah, and the profit per lead source. I'd say, on average, we spend. It really varies. I mean, $1,000 of mailing will get us a deal usually, give or take, and that deal.
$1,000?
$1,000 of mailing, yeah, we'll get a deal.
And we'll get a deal from that? Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it could be. A couple $1,000 wholesale deal, or it could be a project that we flip.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
The point I was going to make was with the cost. It's the answering the call thing. When you know how much your cost per lead is, it's pretty easy to pick up the phone, because then you're thinking, oh, this is $300. Like, it cost me $300 to get this call, and you're going to answer it because you don't. And the other part of it too is the whole. Which one is it? Like, which deal is it? Like, that call coming in could be that $131,000.17 deal.
Yeah, I mean, we see that. That's why we love to answer the phone. I love when the phone rings. Can't imagine not.
Yeah.
No, but it's not, especially after spending the money to get the phone to ring. So.
What about appointments? Do you set up an appointment on that initial call? Or do you do the deal analysis and then do an appointment?
Usually I'll do deal analysis and then call them back. I've done it both ways. Sometimes I'd set up the appointment and then do the deal analysis, and I thought it wasn't going to work. I'd call them back and say, sorry, it's not going to work. But I'll just try to talk to them a little bit in that first contact, get an idea of their personality, what it is that they're looking to do. I'll get the address and I'll say, all right, let me take a look at this, and I'll give you a call back shortly here, and we can set something up. And then if it works, it works. If not, then we just go on to the next one. But like I said, we've started, even those ones that don't work, because a lot of them now are retail. We'll send houses out, or letters out, and we'll get calls from people who have houses that are ready to be listed retail. Or in their eyes, they want retail prices. So instead of throwing those away, we have a realtor now on our team, so we try to capture a lot of those leads. Our profit per deal, our strategy has changed, I guess, as far as what we actually do to the properties. It used to be full rehabs, but with the way the market is here anyway, prices, it's just gotten so high. A lot of what we're doing, what we're seeing other people doing, are basically just cleaning and painting houses and putting them back on the MLS for a smaller profit. But we're not seeing the same, on most of the deals, rate of return to do full rehabs on the projects as we were before. So the margins are smaller, but the amount of work that we put into the projects are smaller too, just because it's difficult to get them at prices that make sense. So.
Yeah. So I guess all the other benefit of that too is probably not being in it for so long. Right? Is your market starting to cool where you are?
Absolutely. We're turning the corner, I think. It's not dropping or anything, but things are sitting longer. feel like prices have definitely leveled out.
Yeah.
We pushed it as high as we could go with people that can afford it. So it's definitely a shift. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a pretty good rise probably since your start, right? In the
Absolutely.
business. It's always been a really good rise.
Up and up and up. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you guys doing anything to prepare for a change in that?
We are. Yeah. We're trying to get as liquid as we can to wait for it to turn and be able to buy things up. And we've got a couple of large for us anyway, acquisitions that we're working on. Big buy and hold rental situations. One is a storage facility, and the other one is like a 13 parcel deal that has some single family houses on it, some commercial properties, duplexes, triplexes, but all one package deal. To try and use that as income for when things go, and then we've been selling a lot of our inventory too to try and get liquid to wait for it. And being more selective with deals too, not as eager to reach for those higher dollar houses and things like that.
Yeah, I've never liked the higher dollar houses.
Yeah, it's too scary. We've done like 2 of them, and it's just not. It's not.
Yeah, too much. You get too much tied up in one property, and it's not even worth it.
Yeah.
And so, and those can be super low ball offers if you just stick to the same percentage formula, and makes it just pretty tough.
Yeah.
Pretty tough to get those. What is y'all's median home price in Tampa?
Around low 200s, I'd say.
Okay, so it's pretty similar, I think, to here.
Yeah, low 200s.
And why did you guys choose Tampa to circle back to that when you looked at all those different markets? You looked at Houston. Were you looking at affordable houses?
We were looking at all that. Yeah, we were looking at the economies in those areas, what they've been doing over the past few years, what the trends were, the types of industry that was there, and housing prices. How much capital, because it was all based, again, we didn't have a ton of money, we had a little bit of money. But Tampa, I had a friend who didn't live in Tampa, but he lived in Florida, and he'd been in real estate for about 10 years. So I got a lot of good information from him. And it just ended up being the right combination of all the things that we were looking for. I mean, all the markets were pretty close, actually, all the places that we looked at. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, though, that you guys didn't just come back and say, where do we want to live? You looked at it from the point of view of, what's going to work for this business. That's kind of cool. I don't think I've heard anybody do that like that.
Yeah.
So what are you guys doing? What's your next step? Like I know you're kind of preparing for this, but as far as in your business, anything that you're working on now that you're excited about?
These big projects I'm excited about. I've wanted to own a storage facility for quite some time. I'm excited to get into that. I'm trying to focus more on building the rental portfolio. I like the commercial side of it too. One of my mentors owns a lot of commercial property, and as far as from a management perspective with tenants, there's a lot less headaches that you have to deal with. He owns like an industrial warehouse type of space. So there's good rent. There's always people looking for those types of spots to rent, and it's not as labor intensive as managing tenants in houses.
So do people market those things the same way that you would do with a house, as far as find like vacant spaces like that and just find out who the owner is?
Kind of, we came across it kind of on accident. The storage facility we found on the MLS and ended up making a real lowball offer, and it got accepted. And the other parcels, the other things, we were looking at the land around the storage facility, and there was a piece of land next to it. And we thought, man, it'd be great if we could buy that too. So we looked up the owner on public records, and we skip traced them, and we gave them a call, and just said, no, we're looking to buy that lot. And they said, oh, well, I'm actually getting ready to sell everything that I own over there. And it turned out not to be just that particular lot, but like I said, it was like 13 parcels all surrounding the one building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I wouldn't imagine that many people are contacting them.
No, and it just ended up to be really good timing. But to go back to that point, that's something that we've had a lot of success with, is following up on returned mail and people we can't get in touch with. We just get their phone numbers and we just call them. We just call them up, or go knock on their door. And a lot of people don't do that, we've found.
They do it. They don't do very long.
Yeah.
I didn't.
It's not fun, but we found it to be productive.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's awesome. And that, to me, again, that's the theme of this podcast episode. And I think it's one, it's kind of refreshing, just talk about those principles that really lead to success as a real estate investor. And it's not shiny, new, fancy, magic bullet kind of thing, or whatever you want to call it. It's just what works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
right.
What's that?
Consistency, I think. Doing the right thing, or small steps in the right direction over time produce results. Inevitably, you just got to keep at it, I think. So.
Yeah, it's a lot of truth in that. So we're going to end the episode now with this. Thank you so much, James, for being on. And if anybody out there listening wants to get a hold of you, how should they do that? How can they?
You could send me an email at james@jahomebuyers.com.
I'm going to add you to my automations and send you texts that ask me if you want me to call you at 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Danny. Appreciate it.
It was a lot of fun. It was good talking to you, James, and keep in touch.
All right. Thanks.
All right.